Okay, thank you.
When I first came to Berkeley, this was my original group. It was a skiffle band before Country Joe and the Fish, and this is Sproul Hall Plaza where all the demonstrations took. It was called the Berkeley String Quartet, and this is my guitar case, which it says Kennedy Slain, and had like a collage put on it. Mm-hmm. And in the Monterey Pop Festival program book, there's a picture of my guitar case. I don't know how I got there, but these are the four people we played. I don't know if I had written Fixing to Die Rag exactly just then, but we sang folk music songs, and this was a part of our publicity shot. We played folk houses in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
So why don't we just sit down and then
okay.
Whenever you
you can start.
Whenever you
you just
whenever you want to
me in a
show us
direction.
some of the pictures.
Yeah.
Don't forget that's a camera, and
okay.
That you show things to the camera, not that much to me, but more to.
But
the
I'm
camera.
talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To Petra and me.
Mm-hmm.
We're both throwing questions. I don't know where to start as well, but let's start with this thing where everybody knows you from, which is Woodstock. Did it was it more harm to your career in the end? I mean, looking at it retrospective, was it more of a harm than it was good?
Well, it depends on. Also, if you want, I can make the birds stop chirping.
No.
You don't care about that?
No.
Because if we cover them up, then they go to sleep.
No, it's okay.
Woodstock was good and bad for me in a lot of ways, because it made me separate from the band. It was a mistake that I performed solo. I wasn't supposed to perform solo. I was supposed to perform with the band, and just was filling in time performing solo. And then it turned out that my solo performance was a real highlight of the festival, along with the fuck cheer, and the impact of doing that song and that song about the Vietnam War and the fuck cheer in front of it, which is quite a banned word, fuck, in America. It's not like today, like in the music today, you hear the word fuck a lot, but you couldn't even print the word in the newspaper. And so it came out on the record and in the movie. It was the first time that it ever happened before, and it made me quite scandalous. And I had to work out of the United States in non-English speaking countries. And also I was banned in a lot of places in the United States. I really couldn't work. And also I became, in the minds of the public, associated with the Vietnam War. Country Joe and the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. So much so that even some people didn't even know that Joe McDonald or Country Joe McDonald, because it was mislabeled on the record. It said Country Joe and the Fish, so it wasn't Country Joe and the Fish. So people thought I was Country Joe and the Fish. They didn't know who Country Joe McDonald was, but everybody in America and I think in the whole world knew 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Yeah. You know, only in America and England did they understand the fuck cheer and the impact of the fuck cheer. In other countries, they didn't understand that, and it took me decades to find out the German story on that. You know, that the verb was it's ficken. Ficken is the verb, and so fuck is just a meaningless nothing. You know, if I had done Ficken in the Woodstock movie, I couldn't work in Germany, you know, but I could work in America. So that was a little crazy part of it, you know. I worked a lot in Germany, but they don't care about fuck, and they didn't care about the Vietnam War really, you know, because they weren't involved in the Vietnam War, they weren't fighting it, and it's not an obscene word, fuck, in German, you know, it's just another word. So anyway, it was
Probably we're not that Puritan in Germany. I mean, we're about
yeah, I guess so.
nakedness and about four-letter words. We're not that Puritans as Americans probably still are. I mean, you still find this words like F and then three asterisks in print in books or in magazines. That wouldn't happen in Germany. You would yeah, just write it down. It's not a problem.
Just yesterday, I read in the local press the word "fuck" written out, F-U-C-K, and it was the first time I'd seen it in our local progressive, hip newspaper. You know, so you're right. America is a very young country, puritanical, very conservative. In a lot of in that particular way, so I became I could work solo. I would make money, and the band broke up anyway, and the band was breaking up anyway because the Woodstock band wasn't the original band, and so since the Vietnam War is still a big problem in America, coming to grips with the Vietnam War. I would say, because I've spent a lot of time in Germany, that the same problem in Germany even today is trying to understand World War II and Hitler in modern day Germany is the same problem that America has and right today, trying to incorporate the Vietnam War, Lyndon Johnson, Kennedy, and Richard Nixon in the Vietnam War in our history. And so it's still a big problem, and the Vietnam War generation is not popular, but I'm connected to it forever because of the Fixing the Diarrhea and because of my work after that with the Vietnam veterans and everything. So that's just the way it happened.
But before Woodstock, the band, the Fish, Country Joe and the Fish, was quite famous in America, but not for this sort of music. I mean, not this jug band type of music. Was that something that mislabeled you in a way? That you became famous all at once worldwide with the movie, the Woodstock movie, and that wasn't really the type of music that the band or you were really playing all the time. That was a different kind of music. That was acid rock or something.
You're right. Electric music for the mind and body, and also this little record that came out, which we self-produced ourselves.
When was that?
In 1966, with Section 43 and bass strings about smoking marijuana, taking LSD, was very musical. And this music is considered by many people, this particular record, to be the most acid West Coast sound ever made. And electric music for the mind and body is probably the best because Dark Side of the Moon, although it is a psychedelic record, is not really like an acid record in a way, but it is in a way. But it came out later, so yeah, we had the I invented, because I wrote the music and did the arrangements and stuff, both things. One thing is this jug band, skiffle sounding, ragtime protest song music, which nobody was really doing at that time. Bob Dylan was doing it a little bit, but I was doing it very directly about the Vietnam War. And then this music too, which people love. So actually, people ask the question all the time, wasn't Fixing to Diarrhea really, really important for Country Joe and the Fish, 1966, 1967? 1968? And I say, I don't know. Because yes, people did do Fixing the Dry Rag, we sang it, but it didn't have a cheer in front of it until 1968. And then the cheer was Fish, F-I-S-H. So it was just part of the repertoire, and we had a reputation of being a music group, and we had a single that did pretty good, Sweet Lorraine, Not So Sweet Martha Lorraine, and we were having a reputation as a psychedelic rock and roll band, you know. But then, when Woodstock happened, yes, it just eclipsed everything else, and it just became bigger than life. Fixing the Dry Rag, the Fuck Cheer, Country Joe and the Fish, whoever that is, was really, really famous, but never really successful in selling singles, in selling lots of records, and making a lot of money at performances and things like that. So yeah, it was the two things. Now today, 30 years later, it's kind of coming together. The music, the psychedelic music, the protest stuff, my involvement with the Vietnam veterans and all that. But the problem is that it's not like the era of the 60s and the 70s that I call the Vietnam War era or the Woodstock era, and it's a global era too. It's not a simple one focused thing to look at and explain. So it's very complicated. You have to be intelligent, you have to think about it, you have to think about yourself and your own involvement in it. It's not like the Beatles. The Beatles made some songs, they sold millions of records, the songs were all happy pretty much, except for John Lennon did a little bit of something over here, but pretty much it's just rock and roll music. And you know, they went and they meditated a little bit, they got involved in a little bit of politics, and that's all. But with Country Joe and the Fish, it wasn't like that. We did a lot of politics, we did a lot of protesting, we did a lot of LSD, we did a lot of psychedelic music, and we all had different points of view. We were involved in all aspects of the counterculture, not just, and also not just in America, because we went to England, we went to Denmark, we were the first bands to go to Denmark, to Sweden, and to Germany, and to France. And we were involved in, when we went to Sweden, we met by the draft dodgers, you know, the deserters who were there. So, so it's very complicated. It's too complicated for the entertainment industry, really.
Do you sometimes regret that you, especially money-wise, you didn't make enough of that chance, of that opportunity in the late 60s, early 70s, because all of the others, I mean, Creedence Clearwater Revival from Berkeley, somehow politically associated for some of their texts as well, or Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead, they all made it quite big financially as well. Did you miss that chance because the band or you weren't promotable enough?
Well, my particular problem with being marketed was that I grew up in a socialist family. I grew up with the music of Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie. It was music that was written for social, political reasons. It wasn't music that was written to make money. I was never raised to want to make money. I was raised to be proud of being working class, and to be proud of working, and to have a job, and to be the aspirations, the highest aspiration of that section of society, the socialists and the left-wingers, was to someday be middle class, maybe, but never to be ruling class. But everybody else, I think, had no problem with that. And so I made a lot of decisions that were against being a success. There was a time in which I was really upset that I couldn't play benefits anymore and raise money, a lot of money, because of my reputation, and also because I was coming from a sincere philosophical place in my art. I made my peers very nervous. They didn't want to work with me. A lot of really famous stars today don't want to work with me. I was paid to stay off of a lot of shows. I was kicked off and banned from, I mean, Country Joe and the Fish were banned from the Albert Hall, now the Queen Elizabeth Hall, the Ed Sullivan Show, the Merv Griffin Show. At one point, Steve Miller wouldn't play with me. Steve Stills wouldn't play with me. Carlos Santana is quite afraid of me. The Grateful Dead, part of the Grateful Dead, were really afraid to play with me.
Why that?
Because I had this incredible reputation of being a big revolutionary or something, you know. But I think that it was just that I talked really sincerely and articulately in a very intelligent way, musically and with my work and speaking about really important subjects that a lot of people from my generation were frightened to talk about, or they didn't understand it. So I think that if I had become, if I didn't have that problem, if there was no fixing to die rag and no politics in my life, then Country Joe and the Fish probably would have been a very successful band, would have made a lot of money. I would be living in Hollywood or something now, in a mansion, and probably addicted to some very expensive drugs, and probably some of the band members would be dead now from alcoholism or some addiction of some kind. You know, that it would have ruined my life in many ways. But now, you know, I'm like some people from my generation, which is, I was born in 1942, so I'm not really the 60s generation, decided not to be part of the Korean War generation. We wanted to be part of the younger generation. And so now it's been, like I said, 30 years of this kind of music, or 35 years, and my career is pretty much, it's not over, but the most of my work is done now. So I have come to feel very good about my career and what I did, and I feel very lucky because you remember me. I mean, when you think of the 60s, you remember Country Joe, and if you don't remember Country Joe, you remember 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? And it makes you think about the Vietnam War. And just the phrase 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for, is really one of the most important thoughts that you can have in 2001 on planet Earth, isn't it? Because war is killing the planet. Not just killing the people on the planet, but it's killing the planet with the ozone layer and everything. So I bring with me, in a pop culture way, like the soup can guy, what's his name?
Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol. He didn't intend to bring with him social issues when he painted Marilyn Monroe and soup cans, but I didn't either. When I wrote Fixing to Die Rag, I was just doing something that came naturally. But I bring with me a kind of seriousness that you have to accept. And it's part of me. I am serious about this. And I have been since I was, I don't know, 10 years old.
Although the song, I mean, the Fixing to Die Rag, was almost like a sarcastic comedy song. I mean, it didn't sound very serious. It was laughing about a catastrophe, a disaster that was taking place in a way. Or was that was the perception in America different? I mean, that was our perception.
No, it's called black humor or satirical humor, and when you're young, you're not very powerful. Now you understand. I grew up in a family that was working class, socialist, union family, and I knew that it was very difficult for working people to get their rights and to protest and to get a fair justice in the world. So
I think your father was a unionist, and he was
a unionist
sort of
and
victim
a member
of McCarthyism.
Yes, he was investigated by McCarthy, and my mother and my father both were followed by the FBI. My mother, since she was 16 years old, followed by the FBI, because her mother was a communist from a Russian immigrant, a Jewish Russian immigrant. And and I knew about the Holocaust. I took it very seriously. But also, when you're a young person, you use sarcasm and humor because it's just natural. You know that you're not powerful enough to be really serious. So in your nervousness, you laugh, and you'll talk to teenagers who've had really traumatic experiences, and they'll laugh when they're talking about it, because it's a nervous laughter. And so I used, because I grew up with Gilbert and Sullivan music. I don't know if you know in Germany who Gilbert and Sullivan is, but they're using irony and satire as a tool to tweak, to bother leaders, powerful people in the world. Because if you say it really seriously, then they're going to take you as a serious revolutionary, and then they can lock you up and really hurt you. But if you're being entertaining about it, you see, then they don't know what to do, And so Fixing to Die Rag is very entertaining. And if you're an incredibly stupid person, you can listen to the whole song and never think about war. But I think there's only about 6 people like that on the world who are that stupid. Most people, they listen to it, and in the back of their mind, they're thinking, yeah, this is funny, but this is not funny. What's the funny part? And to explain to you a little bit about how not funny it is, or how funny it is, the song I Feel Like I'm Fixing to Die Rag, with the words, whoopee, we're all going to die, was used by the Vietnamese. Because the Vietnamese, for propaganda, would play American music to the American soldiers in Vietnam. And they would play typical rock and roll stuff from the 60s to them, to make them feel homesick, to make them feel demoralized and confused. And in the secret prison camp in Hanoi called Hanoi Hilton, they would play this kind of music to the prisoners, which they were torturing regularly. And when they would play Fixing to Die Rag, the prisoners would be uplifted, and feel comforted by the song, because the song really described our situation as young people in America. Whoopee, we're all going to die. I don't give a damn. There's nothing I can do about it. But there is something I can do about it, which is to act sacrilegious about it, to act silly about it. And so the Vietnamese running the prison camp didn't understand. Although they went they went to France, they studied English, they studied American history, they studied Thomas Jefferson, but they didn't study American sense of humor, right? It's a very special sense of humor. And this sense of humor, maybe it translates into other, because they seem to be entertaining in German also. Because, when Country on the Fish went around and we played, and we sang Fixing to Die Rag, people who didn't speak English as a first language and weren't American also saw the song as being kind of humorous, and dark and light and mixed together, But I think this is a particular American teenage young person kind of a thing, of being funny and serious at the same time. It's a safe way to do it. It's not something that I use anymore now, because I'm completely grown and I can be serious, and I don't act silly. But then it was really a very powerful propaganda tool, Fixing to Die Rag. In the military terms, we'll call it psyops, psychological operation. It was, if it had been the Internationale or something, or if it had been like some of Phil Oak's music, which is so serious that it's too serious, then it wouldn't have been popular. So I was very lucky. I was very lucky to write that song. And I could write that song because I was from a socialist background, a communist background, and I didn't like communism. And I was also from a military background because I had been in the Navy and I was out of the Navy, and so I didn't I didn't like the military leaders either. So
Why haven't you been drafted through the Vietnam War? I mean, you were
well, I enlisted in
with
the
the
Navy
army,
in
with the Navy.
1959.
Yeah,
So I got out in 1962.
yeah.
So I didn't get drafted because they didn't start drafting people until 63, 64, 65. And I didn't get called back into the military either. They won't give me my FBI files, but maybe because they thought I would be trouble if they got me back in the military, and I definitely would have caused some trouble then. But the first time I was in the military, I didn't cause any trouble. I was a good sailor. I did a good job, and I got a good discharge. I don't mean sexual discharge, military discharge.
By the way, can you
Okay.
can you tell us something about your brief love affair with Janis? I mean, at least one song came out of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't like talking too much about Janis Joplin anymore because it's been so culty, kind of a cult thing. But we did spend 3-4 months together as a boyfriend and girlfriend, and it was at the same time that I had this little record out. She also had another EP out, also with Big Brother and the Holding Company, and we were very excited about having possibly a career in music together. I mean, not together, but I mean both of us, and with our different bands. And we would listen to the radio. Lived in Haight-Ashbury. She was a very nice person, very intelligent person, hardworking person, and she had grown up in Texas, so she was a bit conservative. I had grown up in California, which is a completely different thing. And eventually we both were working so much that we just couldn't spend time together too much. But we weren't, we were good friends, and we were a boyfriend and girlfriend, but we weren't, I don't think, really in love in the kind of way that you're going to get married to somebody or something like that, you know.
I read somewhere that you disagreed politically as well. That she was more into doing or having an individual career and making as much money as she can, and you had this thing that you shared your royalties for your songs with the other band members who haven't been involved in writing this stuff. So was that a major issue at that time?
Well, I had a political consciousness, and I was trying to be a good socialist and sharing things. And I also wanted to. I had an interest in learning from other people and being studying about politics and different things. Janis wasn't particularly interested in money, but she wasn't really aware politically, and she didn't really want help from anybody, or she didn't really want to think about parts of herself that needed building or worked on or learning things. She just wanted to use what she had to be a successful musician, that's all. And she got very defensive if she didn't want to have a dialogue or anything like that. She got very defensive about it. I mean, very hostile about that. She just wanted to really be left alone and to be a pop star. That's what she wanted to be, was a pop star, you know. And we never had any political discussions really, but occasionally I would go to do something political, and she would wonder, why the hell are you doing that, you know. She just didn't think about it, which is, she was pretty normal in that way, you know, like most people, you know. I wasn't really.
Have you ever felt like being a pop star? I mean, most of this stuff here is photographs or is billboards, and that is making. I mean, that is making a star in a way. This sort of looking like a pop star and posing like a pop star, and so have you ever felt like a pop star?
Well, I tried to be a pop star at some points, and I was wearing some pop star clothes and things like that. I had a discussion with Mario Savio, who was the Free Speech Movement guy in 1966 about heroes, and we had a disagreement because he said that that we didn't need any more heroes. I said that yes, we did need new heroes. We needed new kinds of heroes to inspire us to do work, like Woody Guthrie, like Pete Seeger, like Joe Hill, like Bertolt Brecht. That's the kind of hero that I wanted, that I thought that my generation needed. It's also been a problem being a pop star because I don't really want to be a pop star, and so I'm always working against. Not to the point that Lenny Bruce works so much against being a star, but I have quite a reputation for being a non-star, and it bothers me. I didn't really want. I thought I would grow up and work in a factory, and I don't. I'm quite surprised by all of this, and it makes me nervous. Now, just professionally speaking, I'm pretty comfortable sitting here talking to you and being in front of the camera, but a lot of time in my life I wasn't. So I've turned this into my job. This is my job, and try to set a good example, And it's very fortunate that I haven't, that I don't have to make a hard decision like some other people of my generation made, and no one's offered me $1 million, So I don't have to make the choice of selling out. I never really had the big choice of selling out. So that's just what I turned out to be. Whatever Country Joe is, it turned out to be. It's the film that you're making will deal with that. Country Joe. What is Country Joe? I mean, is it the music? Is it the politics? Is it the clothes? What is it? Because it's pretty easy when you look at ABBA. You think, a whole lot of really great songs that people love that sold millions. Period. Okay. Or you look at Elvis Presley. It's a little bit confusing because of different things that he did, but pretty much he just sang songs that had no political meaning to them. They were really good songs, and people loved them and made millions of dollars.
But what about somebody like John Lennon? I mean, he has this reputation of being a revolutionary, although he probably wasn't any of that kind.
Well, John Lennon, that's interesting that you mentioned John Lennon. He has quite a reputation. His reputation is, a lot of his reputation is because he was a member of the Beatles, of course. And as a member of the Beatles, they were social and political a little tiny bit, I guess. But he broke away from them, and then the most telling song of his is where he said, "A working class hero is something to be," right? Which is, I've never felt that way in my life, and the only way that you can write a song like that is to not be raised with working class heroes, because a working class hero is something to be dead. I mean, Joe Hill was killed by a firing squad. Victor Jara was beaten to death in a soccer stadium by Pinochet. the history of working class heroes is jail and death and execution oftentimes. So I didn't want that. You know, like I said, my family was investigated by the FBI. On my mother's side, they were Jewish. They were put into death camps. On my father's side, they were from Oklahoma in the Depression. They, you know, lost all their farms and everything, and just had hard work and suffering. You know, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. But at the same time, if I'm not visible, then nobody sees me. Nobody knows anything about it. So it's a very tricky business. But John Lennon, I think he really wanted to be a working class hero. I don't want to be a working class hero. But part of my job is to be a working class hero, you know. And what I don't want to be is, I'm looking for that big tall picture, yeah. So this guy here, you know, it looks pretty much like it could be a working class hero, you know.
Could be a pop star as well.
But and could be a pop star, but definitely not Danny the Red. You know what I mean? And not John Lennon either, exactly. You know, so it just turned out that that I'm Country Joe. You know, and I'm alive, and I'm doing pretty good. Everything's fine. I feel pretty good, and my career is puttering along, and I've been able to maybe make some social change, not only in America but in the world, and to help my generation, and to do some good work, and that's enough. I think that's enough for me. I don't think people are ever satisfied. You know, in my head I'm thinking, fuck, it's not enough. Give me my fucking money, you assholes, you know? I want my gold record. I want my fucking, you know, where's my limousine? You know, what the fuck is going on here? You know? And then I think, well, that's stupid. I don't really want it. Because, you know, there was a time when I was a star a little bit, and managers were just pushing me around, and agents were pushing me around. The record company was pushing me around. I was getting my picture taken all the time. I didn't have any privacy. I had to wear clothes I didn't want to wear. I had to sing what I didn't want to sing. And I became, you know, the Country Joe that people seem to like. The guy who said, fuck you people. I'm getting out of here, you know. I got to go play in the park. Fuck it, you know. And so every now and then they would say, you know, come and play Albert Hall, and then I'd be banned from Albert Hall after that, you know, or come to the Ed Sullivan Show, then, you know. See, in order to be a pop hero, working class hero, you have to play the game. If you don't play the game, you're not going to be that. If you don't show up on your appointments, if you don't smile at the right time, if you don't sit for your photo session, if you don't record your albums right, you know, pretty soon nobody's going to deal with you anymore. And I've done a lot of that, but not enough to ruin my career, but just enough to make it so that I never was a superstar. As a matter of fact, just enough so that Steve Stills and Carlos Santana and Joan Baez don't really want to even be in the same room with me. You know? I don't know. They think I'm going to say fuck or something. I don't know. I don't know what they think. But anyway, you know, and I think that I am a pretty good hero and example for lots of young people in the world. You know, they think I'm a pretty good, okay guy, you know? And that's all I want them to be, is okay. Good working class people trying to make a better life, and not wanting to be a rich star with a limousine and a cocaine habit, because that's nothing. It's just nothing.
But in this summer of love time, like between 66 and probably 70 something, 71 or so.
No, 66 to 68.
68?
Yeah. 69 maybe, not 70.
Was it fun?
Yeah. It was
Can you
wonderful.
show us some of the pictures from or billboards from that time? because most of them are actually from the 60s, as far as I've seen them.
Well, you have to understand that the 66, 67, 68, the really fun part was so small and so homegrown that it's not going to be what you're expecting it to be, you know, because like I said, it's just, you know, this little, like this kind of stuff. This is the fan magazine, you know, thing. It's not slick. It's just a little thing that we did ourselves, you know, and like, you know, here we're playing in the park, you know, we're playing in the park. There's 100 or 200 people there, 300 people, you know. Early on, people didn't. Well, I just don't know how to explain it. You know, I mean, like I said, this you know, this one, 1965, we sold 70 copies for 50 cents. This was wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't sell 1 million copies for $10 a piece. You know, and so people are they want to know what was it like. You know, because they really want to know what it was like, because they think it was like, they think it was like, well, I played a lot of big German festivals, you know, with 100,000 people, people coming in limousines. Well, nobody had a limousine until 1969. You know, nobody had a limousine. Nobody had rock star clothes. We went down to the Goodwill store, to the second-hand shop, and we bought our clothes. We had $5. We smoked some bad marijuana. We took some LSD if we could get it. You know, we had a good time. We slept together in the same room, commune. We shared our stuff. We were a success on a little scale, but when people want to know about that, they're not going to be impressed. There's nothing to impress you with, you know. But we did it all ourselves. We liked each other. We were all working together. We weren't in a competition with each other. We didn't dream about, like, even Janis Joplin, she dreamed, she wanted to be a success. But if you had said, Janis, how much money would you have to be a success? How many records would you have to be a success? She would say, oh, a bunch, or something like that, or a lot, or maybe I would have a car, you know. But nowadays, you know, people will say, like, okay, you were a big success in 67, 68 or something like that. Okay, you had 6 limousines and a car, you had a house in Hollywood and a house in the south of France, and you had, you sold platinum. Carlos Santana sold 23 million albums, right?
Yeah.
We sold 70 albums.
Yeah,
70 albums, and 30 years later, people are interested in these 70 albums.
Yeah.
This is quite expensive today.
This album was, I'm selling it, but I won't, for $2,500. But, you know, you can't have it. As a matter of fact, that's the unique and wonderful thing about the Summer of Love era, is that you can't have it. It's ours. Mm-hmm. But you can have your own experience, because I've been to many little festivals and events in Germany and in England and in France and in Scandinavia. Little tiny events that are almost like family gatherings, you know, where somebody plays music for free and you all share some food together, and then you go paint something on a building or something to protest war. You know, this was the wonderful thing about it, and the establishment wasn't really trying to kill us then, because we're a little small thing, you know, just like this guy here, you know. this guy here, Ho Chi Minh, you know. I mean, in 1945, nobody cared very much about him because he had a little tiny army in the little place called Vietnam, you know.
Mm.
But now, when people look at Ho Chi Minh, they think, the great hero of the Vietnamese army who defeated the Americans in the imperialist war in Vietnam. You know,
So you've never been aware at that time that this thing would be remembered 30 years later, and that tourists would stroll along Haight Street and go to Golden Gate Park and stand in front of the house of the Grateful Dead and say, wow, and they lived here, and you were never aware of how big this thing would be forever, probably?
we didn't think about it, and we didn't care about it because we were living our life right then. We were living our life right then, doing something that we wanted to do. And we weren't thinking about history. The only history that we were thinking about, and most of my friends weren't thinking about it, I was thinking about was peace, that we would have peace and a good job, maybe at least some work. But you know, the funny thing is that some people live in the past, some people live in the present, some people live in the future. I'm really interested in the future and the present. And I respect the past. I have a lot of stuff from the past because I really think it's nice to go back and to look and to be sure what it was. But you know, I'm telling you, it's so ridiculously stupid and funny to me that recently they're taking tour buses around the Haight-Ashbury looking for Janis Joplin's house that Country Joe and Janis Joplin lived in, because it was her house, actually. I couldn't afford to have an apartment, and I didn't have my own apartment. I didn't even have a car. I would hitchhike back and forth, you know. She was much more together than me, which is, I think she would have a great time today with women's liberation today if she was alive, you know. But there was a big discussion that took place not only between me and the people who were doing this these tours, but people who were writing journalisms were writing about where was the house, and actually no one could remember. So
can you remember?
Well, I thought I could remember, and I did an interview with the paper about it, but it turned out that I was even wrong, that it wasn't exactly that house, it was another house. And so that's the ridiculous part about it, is like, you know, if you're thinking, you know, if you're a young person today, you're thinking about like, oh boy, I wish I could have lived in the 60s at the time of Woodstock and the Monterey Pop Festival, Haight-Ashbury, if I could only like do that, and just thinking about that, you know, and I meet some people like that, you know, and I tell them, forget about it, you know, think about now, you know, think about writing a song now, about something happening now, you know. You think, oh, what can I really want to put on a music event, and so I say, and how many people do you want to attract? Oh, I think, you know, maybe 100,000, 200,000. That's all. I say, you know, I was just laughing, you know. What the hell are you talking about, you know? You know, I mean, we had $5, we made 70 records. There you go, you know. You know, we had $10, we got some spaghetti, and we fed everybody, and we played some music. There you go.
But some others of this Summer of Love thing, like the Jefferson Airplane, they quite fast. They sold a lot of records of Surrealistic Pillow, and they had chart records, and they had a lot of money, and
they wanted money, and they wanted chart records.
Yeah,
they always did
from
the beginning. They did exactly what they wanted to do, and they got exactly what they deserve, I guess. I did exactly what I wanted to do, and I got exactly what I deserve, I guess.
Well, probably not.
I don't know.
What are you doing right now?
Well, right now, mostly I'm a housewife, because my wife is a nurse, registered nurse, working in labor and delivery with babies, delivering babies, and and I have 5 kids, but 3 kids are grown, and 2 kids are home. And when Jerry Garcia died, I decided to quit. I just quit. I said, I don't want to die on the road like Jerry, you know, being a slave to my reputation, and I wasn't having fun. So I quit for 1 year. I didn't know if I would ever start playing again, and then I told my wife, just work some more, you know. I like to have a working wife. It's very sexy, you know, one that makes money. then I don't have to work, you know, because I don't really like working a lot all the time. I hate it, actually. And so I liked staying home, and I stayed home for a year, and then gradually I started playing some more music again, but I decided I would only do music, Country Joe work that I wanted to do. It has to be the right cause, the right money, the right place, the right time. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. So I only do about maybe 30 things a year musically as Country Joe. And the rest of the time, I'm shopping. I don't help with homework very much, but clean the house and washing clothes and all those things, which I have been doing my oldest is 32 years old, so I've been off and on. I've been doing that for my whole life, actually, for the last 32 years, which is another thing that used to drive everybody crazy. Is I would just take 3 months off and stay home and help my wife with the kids. So I do that, and I practice and I perform a little bit, and I get some gigs, and then I go and I travel and I play. Right now I'm playing in a lot of, I play solo by myself, acoustic folk. I also play with David Cohen, who was the keyboard guitar player for Country Joe and the Fish, as a duet. We play together. And also I play with an English rock band called the Bevis Frond. And we play Country Joe and the Fish music. They have their own thing, 11 CDs and everything, but we also we made one album together of Country Joe and the Fish music. And so I just played in Seattle with them. And also next year I'm going to play with a skiffle band from England called Reet Petit and Gone. We're going to play some folk festivals. And also I did a solo CD and a live CD, which I sell on my website. And I've been making my websites. I have 2 websites. So I had a lot of time at home and working with another person building websites, which has been very interesting for me. And I like the websites. It's a lot of fun. And then also I got involved almost 20 years ago, 19 years ago, in the life of the English woman Florence Nightingale, who started professional nursing. And she has quite an interesting history, which involves Germany, because she went to Kaiserwerth in Germany to study nursing back in the 1800s, 1830s, to a guy named Fliedner, Pastor Fliedner. Kaiserwerth Hospital is still there in Germany, next to Dusseldorf, yeah. It's a little tiny place, but I was just there, and I have a web page for Florence Nightingale. I'm very interested in Florence Nightingale, and I work with a lecture about Florence Nightingale, and I have different things about Florence Nightingale and nursing. And so I'm studying about Florence Nightingale and nursing. Also working on, I think we're going to release a special package of these 3, we call them the EPs. There's this in a package of these, and this, and this, with some notes, and vinyl through an Italian company. We're talking very seriously now about it, to put out a package with some notes, because I get a lot of emails from students who want to know about the Vietnam War and fixing to die rag, and they're studying about it. So since all of this being 1965, 1966, and I think 1971. All of these involving the Vietnam era, the psychedelic era, where this is the Vietnam War and Lyndon Johnson and the Watts riots, and this is the psychedelic aspects of the Vietnam War. Although I think Superbird is on that album too, which is another make fun of the president one. And here is a Tricky Dicky. I just realized that it's all three presidents. I didn't cut them any slack, did I? and this was has a Kiss My Ass, which is about the military, but also Free Someday, which is about being a revolutionary. Because that was a time when we wanted to be.
The design is by Jane Fonda, which is a bit surprising.
Well, I was making this. Jane Fonda was coming over to my house because she was being a feminist, and she was involved with my wife, and her daughter Vanessa was going to the same nursery school in Berkeley, run by a collective of people called the Red Family, which were. Bader Meinhof, I don't know. They did a lot of secret stuff, but they were also a collective of very militant people and some very rich people and they had a nursery school, and also it was the thing you do, and so Jane was there in the living room when I was designing this, and this benefits, the money goes to her Entertainment Industry for Peace and Justice in California, which was her organization. She doesn't like to admit it now, that she was a radical, political radical at that time, but she very much was a political radical. And so I wrote down in here, a cover design by Jane Fonda. Actually, I designed it and she filled it in with a marker pen, But I knew she wouldn't want to credit herself to be associated in the long run with Country Joe, so I put that down there. And I actually did her FTA shows, Free the Army show. We went around to military bases and did anti-war entertainment, and she sponsored that whole thing, which she doesn't really like to admit any longer. There was a movie made, and then I got in an argument with her, and I left the show about her attitude towards the GIs, because she was not a working class person. She grew up being part of the privileged upper class because Henry Fonda was her father. And she, has had servants and a mansion and everything. And so she didn't understand really the GIs. But I understood the GIs quite well because I was essentially a working class, lower middle class guy, and a GI also myself. So we got in a fight about that, and then I left. And so we're going to put these together here on a Rag Baby Records. Like I said, this was the first Rag Baby record, and Rag Baby Records still exists, and so I still make CDs. But what I do on my website and what I do in my performance level, it cannot be compared in any way to what most of my peers do. The numbers are really not the same. I'm not selling 70, but I'm not selling 70,000. So I'm still pretty much in business for myself, selling a few things here and there on my website, making CDs, and they sell a few thousand here, a few thousand there. I made about, because I never got rich, I made about, I think, maybe almost 35 albums now. Of mostly original material, written by me and produced by me.
Do you still get royalties out of that?
I still get royalties,
like
but the original Country Joe and the Fish royalties are still divided because I shared my royalties with them, and I was being a good socialist then, which I wouldn't recommend anybody else do. I wouldn't recommend that. My idealism for socialism was a bit unrealistic at that time, but I also don't believe in being...
So for things like Section 43 or Fixin' to Direct or rock and soul music, you still
Yes.
share the royalties.
Share the royalties on the original recordings for that material. So that it's been quite a good investment for even the manager. Been quite a good investment for the original partnership, and that's normal. Pretty much normal. It's not normal to split all your publishing royalties, but I was trying a little bit harder than everybody else to be a good. I was shocked actually, and still am today, at the number of people of my generation who actually came from a real left-wing family who really grew up with concepts of socialism of any kind, or even strong union feeling. You know, it's quite remarkable actually. Most of the Vietnam generation, the Woodstock generation, is made up of pretty much middle-of-the-road American families, you know, who were not really left or not really right, you know, pretty, most of my generation, Jerry Rubin, Abby Hoffman, Phil Oakes, Grace Slick, Joan Baez, Jane Fonda, they developed a social consciousness and an economic awareness of workers' rights and this sort of thing in the 60s, but I got it from when I was born. So that was pretty unusual. Also, what was pretty unusual was that I didn't go into the left wing. Well, I did, but I was kicked out in a way because I wasn't serious enough. I mean, the left wing, you know, like the Baader Meinhof, they don't like you smoking a lot of marijuana and acting stupid, you know. They shoot you in the knees if you do too much of that, you know. So they're very serious about it, you know. So I had enough of that really serious shit, you know. Yeah. I don't like the really serious shit over here, you know, the political. And I don't like the really serious capitalist shit either. It just drives me crazy, you know. We're going to make a lot of money. We're going to make a revolution, you know. I like to take some time off, smoke some pot, you know, kick back, enjoy life a little bit, you know. So that made me very suspect.
Yeah, we're running.
You ready?
Mm-hmm. We're running.
Yeah. So I make a joke sometimes that I thought I would be known historically as a sensitive poet. But instead I'm known as a person who got 500,000 people to yell fuck. You know, and fuck in the English language, the English Celtic language, the word fuck is a special word because it has so many different meanings. It can be used as an adjective or as a noun or as a verb or as, it's a very flexible word. I don't know that there's another word in any other language like that. But when we did the fuck cheer at Woodstock and everybody yelled fuck, you have to understand that it's not normal. At that time in 1969, it wasn't really normal to say fuck anyway, because it was a forbidden word. And it was a word that you wouldn't say in front of an important person. Like, you wouldn't go in front of the Pope and say fuck. You wouldn't go in front of the Prime Minister and say fuck. You wouldn't go in front of a judge at your trial and say fuck. Because just saying the word fuck would upset everything. It completely changed the subject. You could say, you know, please don't kill me because I'm fucking afraid to die. And then people all they would talk about was that you said the word fuck. Because it was a word that everybody used. And when you look at the Richard Nixon tapes, expletive deleted, we know now that Richard Nixon said fuck all the time, right? So no one from the generation that I grew up in and the 60s generation a little bit afterwards, so all the people at Woodstock, they're about 20 years old, 30 years old, teenagers, had never really, not like today. Like today in the world, when anybody speaks English, they're saying fuck all the time. I don't know what it's like in Germany, but in America, every 12-year-old kid is saying fuck all the time. All kinds of fuck. Fuck you! Oh, fuck off! What the fuck is this? What the fuck is going on? You know, but when I was growing up, when I was 12 years old, nobody said that, right? So we just said fuck. It just happened. It was fish, it was 4 letters, and it turned into fuck. And the one meaning for the word fuck is rage. Like when you say fuck, it means ah, ow, ooh, ah, something like that. You know, it really, it's the most banned word in the English language, but in the context of the Woodstock Festival, it didn't have any sexual meaning to it at all. You know, it didn't really have a fuck you meaning to it, but just the act of 500,000 people, you can't arrest 500,000 people for saying fuck, right? It's beyond. And I didn't say it, I just asked them to spell it, right? So you can't really blame me. So it's a very funny situation here. And even just to talk about it in 1969 without using the word fuck is impossible. So if Richard Nixon heard it and heard about it, then he had to talk about it. They had to talk about fuck. And it's a word that you're not supposed to talk about and not supposed to say. So how do you talk about the fuck cheer if you can't say the word fuck, right? All you can say is they said that word. What word? That word. You know, what word? What word? Because they didn't even say the F word then. Because you couldn't even say the F word. That was too taboo, right? So just the yelling of fuck and the yelling of the word, not just fuck. You're like, oh, fuck, I hurt my finger. Fuck you. It wasn't like that, you know? It was like the sound of all these people yelling fuck at the same time in a rage and then singing the Vietnam song, right? Because we were all upset. We were upset because we had no power. They didn't like us. We wanted to wear long hair, earrings. The issues are very, very long. They were beating on us. They were hurting us. They were treating us. They were abusing us. We were angry. We were upset. And so we said, we all screamed fuck, you know. But the fuck cheer over time is still a pretty radical experience. And the reason I'm saying that is that every time I go somewhere now, all those years since then, I have to make a decision. Am I going to do the fuck cheer? Am I not going to do the fuck cheer? You know, in Germany it's no problem because fuck is like meaningless. It's not the same thing. But in English-speaking country, it's like really, don't do it. You can get arrested. There are even laws that can get you arrested for saying fuck. They're really old laws. But the thing is that I was up in Washington State just last month. I was playing in a little community called Langley, Washington, on Whidbey Island, where friends of mine went up there in the 60s to get away from the city, and they were part of the radicals community in Berkeley, and they left and they went up there, raised their children and everything, and I've gone up there many times. They're part of a little community, 1,000 people in this little community, and 10 years ago I went to the high school and I did the fuck cheer, and the whole town still knows about it and still talks about it. The principal came out and gave a big speech about it. But this time, in the new community theater, I came back to the little town and I did the fuck cheer. And everybody was like, you know, they were yelling, fuck, and I sang Fixing to Die Rag. Everything was fine. Everybody was like giggling about it and thinking how silly it was. There were adults, you know, 50 years old now, and they're yelling fuck, and nobody knows what's going on. And so the next day, I'm talking to a young woman who is there at the community theater with her son, who's 2 years old, and I think she's probably about 30 years old. And she said to me something which I'd never heard before, because I always think, well, the fuck cheer is passé now. I keep thinking to myself, you know, because Fixing to Die Rag is almost passé. But I think that it's finished, you know. But then she says to me, she said, you know, last night, because we were talking about the fuck cheer, and then she said, I'd never yelled fuck before. She said, sometimes around my mother, even now, I'm married, I'm gonna go, I have my own child, I'm 30 years old, but even around my mother, I'll say fuck, but I would go, fuck. I never yelled, fuck! With a bunch of other people. She never yelled fuck, And I thought, that's interesting, because, and now I have to get a little bit of the Country Joe serious guy in here, that, as a woman, if you're being attacked by a man, for instance, you have to be able to yell, fuck! I mean, you can't just say, don't fucking touch me. You know what I mean? But you're raised to be vulnerable that way, to not, let it all come out. If you're raised in an upper class family, if you're used to power, you can use your language and your power and your body in a powerful way, and you don't hesitate to do that, to strike, But thanks to me and the Woodstock film and everything, maybe it's a little bit easier for people to say, fuck, just fuck you, And in some cases, you need to say that because you have confrontations and things like that. So so what I'm saying is empowering. It's empowering to you in a different way than singing a pop tune together. Mm-hmm. It's different. It pushes the rules, and I like it because it's not rules that are going to hurt anybody. It's not breaking a rule that's meaning. I mean, what difference does it make if you say fuck or not? Really, and also I like it from lots of points of view because it's the working class that says fuck, isn't it? It's not the upper class. The upper class doesn't say fuck.
Except Richard Nixon.
Yeah, but he wasn't upper class. He wasn't. He was a Quaker. He went to a small college in California. He's just like me, actually, just a middle class guy who got a lot of power, and he brought with him his behavior as a middle class, working class person. He brought his behavior with it, uncultured, unsophisticated. They didn't like him for a lot of ways. He was, in many ways, a working class hero, a guy who went from the bottom up to the top, But he never was accepted at the top because he didn't have the, just yesterday on television I was watching as the parliamentary session started and Queen Elizabeth walked in. She was wearing a crown and they were carrying a cape behind her, and everyone was dressed in ceremonial clothing that was worth millions of dollars, sitting on a throne and clustered in gold, and that's the environment. It's very powerful. In that environment, she can just sentence someone to death, but in that, you can shatter that environment. Just go, fuck you! Fuck the Queen! It's like, really, I mean, here we are, we think, we're really, it's the 21st century, everything is modern, we have computers, technology is incredible, we have satellites up there, I'm using a word that's, 3,000, 4,000 years old? Still to this day, it just makes, can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine, when the German parliament meets, and one guy gets up and yells, fuck you! It's like, it's just like, it kind of makes everything real, from my point of view. Because I live in that world where my kids are, it's in your face and it's real and we use regular language, It's not like Queen Elizabeth. Nobody's carrying the back of my clothing around to make sure it doesn't drag on the ground, I wash my own hair. I mean, really, and that kind of prevents me from being a superstar, I mean, Jerry Garcia didn't go. He didn't go to to the Hall of Fame, when they inducted them into the Hall of Fame, they had to put a cardboard Jerry Garcia up there because, can you imagine? I mean, he's there with a black T-shirt on, the big fat guy with the beard and black T-shirt, Everybody else is wearing tuxedos, And so in a way, it kind of saves me from ever being, try to picture in your mind, Country Joe and Bill Clinton, what am I wearing? What am I saying? I guess on a secret level, me and Bill would have some conversations that could be, have a lot in common, But in a public level, I don't have the finesse that Bill has to pull it off. I'm not, because probably I'm going to say fuck. Probably I'm going to be wearing jeans. And so that, I like that, It really, pisses me off that I'm not the president and I'm not getting a blowjob by interns in the hall, and I don't have a bunch of platinum records, But on the other hand, I like it. I enjoy it. I hope it makes the people nervous. That's the one, I just read that Bertolt Brecht said that his career was kind of ordinary, but at least he made the authorities nervous, and that made him happy. I'm happy with that.
But you wrote almost sing-along things like, was it Sunshine? That's a pop tune. That's very lighthearted. You do that as well?
Yeah, and at
Would
first,
you play that as well still? In
occasionally I
concert?
play that.
Yeah.
Occasionally I play the pop tunes, and my fans like to hear a lot of the pop tunes now. They like to hear a lot of the music. But after '69 and when it got into the 70s, '80s, even into the '80s, people would really take me to task for writing pop tunes because they said, we want revolutionary songs. How about some songs like Phil Oakes or some songs and then I couldn't make anybody happy, and it used to get me upset because I started writing Save the Whale songs and Save Seal songs and things like ecology, and then people would say, oh my God, all we ever hear from this guy is protest music. This goddamn, it's making me sick, Save this, save that, stop the war. Why don't you write some music? So then I wrote a whole album of love songs. And they said, fuck this guy. He's famous for writing protest songs, and he writes a bunch of piss-off love songs, What the hell's wrong?
That's what
What's
I meant.
Wrong?
If that wasn't a bit of a trap as well, that you became famous for this.
I tried to fall in the
protest.
trap, and I tried to be successful, but then I realized that I wasn't going to make them happy anyway. And they didn't understand me. And so I was going to make myself happy. And I like I like love songs, I like protest songs, I like skiffle songs, I like ragtime songs, I like the blues, I like all that music. Music is a very important part of my life. And I like to do it. And if it doesn't get me millions of record sales, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm very lucky to be, you think about it, you're the second biggest television station in Germany, and you come to my house in Berkeley to talk to me. And I don't sell 25 million records, and I don't have a limousine, and I'm very lucky to have a job and to be able to speak honestly about it, and to not have to put on clothes. I mean, really, I didn't. Nobody did my makeup this morning. And I can walk around town, quite easily. And some people recognize me, some people don't recognize me. Most people don't even give a fuck about me, They know who I am, and I have neighbors, and I can wash my own clothes, and I don't have servants bossing me around, telling me what to do, Because that's the thing about servants is, for a while I had a bunch of money. More money than I expected that I would have, and we did have some servants in the house, nanny and housekeeper. They're feeding you food you don't want to eat. They're telling you what they're going to do. They're bossing you around, and I don't like to be bossed around, really. So, you know, I shop and I get the food I want. I cook it the way I want to, and I don't get bothered, and I don't have strangers in my house, and I don't have people bothering me. Occasionally, some TV show from Germany comes to my house or films me, but it's actually fun, and I don't get so nervous about it anymore. I used to think, what will I do on this show to make me a big success, you know? And I learned over 30 years that I have no idea. Mm-hmm. And if I do this, they're going to say, oh, fuck you, you did that, you know? I do this, oh, fuck you, you did that, you know? The people that don't like me, don't like me. The people that do like me, they like me, and there you are. You know, and it's really kind of finished, because this is really, you know, most of Country Joe's life there. You know, I'll do some more, but I'm not going to write my famous. I may have a success. But for some reason, this is going to be my biggest success, and I'm quite proud of it. And the fuck cheer. I don't imagine, you know, sometimes people come up to me, they say, if you were going to do a cheer today that would have the impact of the fuck cheer, what would you do? Yeah. I don't think it's possible. Because I think that in the English language, that's the one word, like at the top of the words of the number one language barrier, you know, and that's finished, you know.
But is it as easy today for youngsters who start making music and who have probably a similar attitude towards society or towards politics like you had in the 60s? Is it easy for youngsters now to do things like you did in the late 60s? Because, I mean, establishment is not that tight right now. You cannot provoke people that much with the use of just a 4-letter word. Can you do things like you did in the late 60s? I mean, the whole Woodstock generation did in the late 60s. Can you do this anymore?
Well, I don't want people to do what we did in the 60s anymore. The situation in the 60s, when you look at it now, most people look at it now from the 21st century, it becomes romantic. You're forgetting about things. You're forgetting about napalm. You're forgetting about police clubs. You're forgetting about jail time. You're forgetting about poverty. You're forgetting about oppression.
Ku Klux Klan.
Huh?
Ku Klux Klan. I mean, racism, Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, the Ku Klux Klan, yeah. When we started in the 60s, I mean, segregation was legal, you know. So nowadays, I'd say, who the hell wants to do what I did? You know, that would be like, you know, who wants to suffer what I suffered? You know, really. It's a shame that my music career couldn't incorporate this and the other stuff together. And like Dr. Dre, like Snoop Doggy Dogg, like Limp Bizkit, like whatever, you know, I think it was in '76, I did a Chris Sparkhaus tour of 30, which is kind of strange, Country Joe and the Bank doing tour, but 30 gigs in Germany, and there was a guy named Wally Kravenack and Schultz Brothers, and he was singing in Swedish. He was singing rock and roll in Swedish, you know, and I thought, fuck, this is so fucking great. Because, you know, after World War II, the English was just crammed down everybody's throat, you know, English, 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 you're going to be American, 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 you know. And he was singing in Swedish, and I thought, this is really great, you know. And one of the things that the fuck cheer and this little record maybe opened the door now. Now any kids can make their own record. They can sell their own record. They're not going to get in trouble if they say fuck. They're not going to get beat up, probably. They're not going to get arrested. They're not going to cause a big scandal, you know?
Yeah, but can you have any impact today if you make a record?
Oh, of course.
That's a question. Yeah,
yes, but
sure.
but the impact is always collective. The impact is never, the meaningful impact is always collective. Mm. If nobody cared about the Vietnam War and fuck and wanted to say fuck with me, if no one said fuck with me and wanted to say it as bad as I wanted to say it, it would have been nothing. if no one hated the Vietnam War as much as I hated it, if Richard Nixon didn't hate me as much as I hated him, it wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was the atmosphere. That struggle is going on more, and now it's a global struggle, because I had explained to the young people today, if they're 20 years old or even 25 years old, they're growing up in a planet. We didn't grow up in a planet, we grew up in a nation state. We didn't even know there was a planet. When I grew up, they thought there was the ground that you live on, there was heaven, which was up there that you went to when you were dead, and it was people with wings and clouds, and in the center of the earth was a place called hell that you went to if you're bad. And that was it. There were three, the whole entire universe. Well, outside of that, there was like the solar system, which had sun and planet and stuff. But our immediate reality was heaven, the place we live, and hell, and all the other stuff, which was the enemy. The place we live, which is us, and then the enemy who wants to kill us and hurt us and everything, and we have to go and kill them and stuff, and that's it. You know, that's unbelievably stupid, right? Yeah. Anybody who's 10 years old now in the world knows it's a planet in outer space. There's planets and it has oxygen. We breathe oxygen, and there's wars going on and everything. So it's a progression of a consciousness which is so much better than before. And we just got lucky and made this little thing ourselves. But now, with computers and everything, people all the time are making records and music and plays and culture all over the world, all over the middle class world on the planet, you know. And it's not going to cause the sensation. Well, look at it this way. World War II caused quite a sensation, huh? But who wants World War III? Right? Nobody. I said the fuck cheer and fixing to die rag caused quite a sensation, but who wants to endure what I endured with that? Nobody, I don't think. Mm. What you want is a normal,
so it wasn't
regular
as romantic.
Life.
It wasn't as romantic.
It wasn't romantic at all.
Yeah.
There was nothing romantic about it.
But even things like Monterey Pop, or
fun.
Later Woodstock, wasn't that fun? I mean,
that was fun. The funnest of fun. Absolutely. You bet. And still today. Because people ask me today, you know, is this like that? And I say, yes, absolutely. Mm. You know, you go to any big festival now, music festival, things like that. Normally, there's not a lot of police there. People are taking care of themselves. Normally, they have their own first aid tent and things like that. And it's fun. It's just fun. We had a special fun, I guess, because there was nothing like that before. But now maybe it's even more fun because, you know, at Woodstock and Monterey Pop, there were some mistakes made because they didn't know how to handle big crowds and what to do and everything. But it was fun. I mean, it was great, wonderful fun to be completely safe, to be with people who shared the same interests as you, to not be hassled, you know. And that has become common. It was uncommon then. People tend to look at the uncommon thing and worship it, but I don't think there's any value in worshiping anything. You know, I just worship my health and freedom. But you know, worshiping and idolizing, that's crazy. People say, you know, God, I just wish I had grown up in the time of Woodstock, you know. And I think to myself, well, I'm really glad you didn't grow up in the time of Woodstock, because you could have been sent to Vietnam and killed, you could have been beat up by some fascist pig, or anything could have happened. I'm really glad that you're alive now, you know, and living in a better world, because it's a better world.
Talking about this romantic perspective that we now have towards the late 60s. I think Monterey Pop was organized by John Phillips partly, and he wrote this anthem, San Francisco. What did you think when it came out about that song?
Complete crap. Absolute bullshit.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. Why?
What was so wrong about it then?
Well, the music wasn't very good.
Okay.
He wasn't from San Francisco. And why put a flower in your hair? I mean, it was fun in San Francisco, yeah, but I mean, also there was some hard times, but I mean, it was just the fact that he wrote it, and he was from Southern California. I grew up in Southern California, which is at that time like a police state. Actually, they're having a big scandal now in California with these cops who just frame people and shot people. I mean, Southern California has been notorious as a police state for a long, long time. And for him to write that, you know, I'm not surprised that it turned out that he was on heroin, because the heroin probably made him think everything was beautiful, you know. And then this guy Scott McKenzie, I don't know who the hell he was. I mean, we didn't know who the fuck these people were. I mean, we were in San Francisco, for Christ's sake. That's where it was all in the Bay Area. It was happening. We were making it happen. We were inventing it. And then all of a sudden, there's this stupid ass pop song, and I mean pop song, you know, like a pop tune, you know, a lovely little pop tune about our scene. And it's selling records and it's making money for them. And then at Monterey Pop, I remember, because I had taken this new Owsley psychedelic drug called STP, and I took it that day, and I was sitting in the audience when I thought, okay, they brought all these underground, cutting-edge bands here, you know, not just the San Francisco bands, but bands that we didn't even know about, the Who and Hendrix and Otis Redding and everything. It was all the fusion and the cutting edge of the brand new culture. And then after the 2 days, it was 2 days, not 3 days, 2 days of music, after all this music, then in the end, you see the mamas and the papas. Well, I mean, people were like rebelling against their mothers and their fathers, for one thing, and they called themselves the mamas and the papas, right? I mean, which was like really stupid. And they're playing, they have really expensive guitars, but they're not playing like Michael Bloomfield or Eric Clapton. I mean, they're just playing like Val Doonigan or something, like Twiggy. I don't know, just like the Kingston Trio or something, you know. We're trying to make really, you know, fantastic new kind of music with our, I mean, Jimi Hendrix plays, for Christ's sake, and then John Phillips goes strum, strum, strum on, he's playing a $600 stereo Gibson guitar that we all wanted to have, and he's playing it like this and singing, "If you're coming to San Francisco, be sure to wear a flower in your hair." It was like, fuck you! You know, really, it was really, if he had started the show singing that song, I would say, okay, you know, but ending the show. What happened to that? Yeah, okay.
That was your second marriage?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's pregnant with my 32-year-old daughter. Seven is her name. Seven. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Oh, yeah,
That's from Woodstock, yeah?
This is the Woodstock movie, and this
like
is
Woodstock.
This is my my partner, Bill Belmont. We own Rag Baby Records together now. He was in the production staff of the Woodstock Festival, and he's talking to me. There's the rope. They tied a rope to the guitar because they made me play the guitar. You know, I didn't want to play it. I didn't have a guitar strap. And so, because they forced me to play, I didn't want to play, you know, and I said I couldn't play because there's no guitar strap, so they tied a piece of rope on there, you know. And then I realized people told me I was wearing an earring, but they said almost nobody had earrings back in those days. I didn't even think about that. These photographs are from the original Country Joe and the Fish that played on the, you know, on the little album, the little psychedelic album. That's John Francis, the original drummer. It's hard to see the picture, but we're up in Tilden Park in Berkeley, pretending to be in nature or something. It was like looking like the Beatles or something. I don't know. It's another one in Tilden Park of us again. This is a more sophisticated picture of taken by Linda Eastman before she married Paul McCartney, and she was taking some rock photographs. This is all the band. Above our office space in Berkeley, we had a little office space. I used to sleep in the back room of the office, actually, when I was going with Janis, then I'd hitchhike into San Francisco because I didn't have a car. And this is the Country Joe and the Fish, probably 1968. 1967, I don't think so, early 1968. This is...
and you still didn't make a lot of money then, at that time, because your records were out then, and you still couldn't afford to have a car and an apartment and so?
No, we divided all the money up, and we didn't want to work a lot, and so we didn't work a lot. But I remember once, I think it was 1969, maybe, we played a gig in Florida and we all made $1,000 each, and that was the most money we had ever made. I still remember that we each made $1,000. Boy, that was awesome, you know.
What is that one? The cartoon?
Oh, this is see. This I picked up in France in a used bookstore, a long time ago. It's lyrics from Country Joe and the Fish from the first two albums. And this is a cover drawing that somebody, it's 3 francs, I think, the 3 up there, says. This is a cover drawing that somebody made of see, the front and the back is slightly a bit different, but this is really kind of the story of my life, of Joe McDonald's life, because there's one person there, right? And I guess that's me. And it says Country Joe and the Fish. It doesn't say Country Joe.
Yeah.
Because on the Woodstock record, when I sing by myself, it says Country Joe and the Fish. So people thought I was called Country Joe and the Fish, but there also was a band called Country Joe and the Fish, so they really were confused about it. But here, this person, who is supposed to be Country Joe and the Fish, has long hair and a headband and is smoking a big joint, and the smoke's coming out
And
saying...
a peace sign around his
and
neck.
a peace sign around his neck.
Rolling a joint.
I usually have a peace sign, but my peace sign chain broke, and or else I would be wearing it.
You still have one?
I still wear one. I still wear a peace sign all the time. But just at this moment, I don't happen to have one. Maybe for Christmas, Santa Claus will bring me a peace sign. Actually, I went up on Telegraph Avenue looking for a peace sign 2 years ago, and I couldn't find one to put on a necklace. And I was really pissed off, and I wrote the paper about it, that in Berkeley you couldn't find a peace sign, for Christ's sake. You know, it was. But here you see, this person is sitting on a dead cop, on a policeman who's been stabbed, and the blood is running out here, you know, and they're wearing these jack boots, you know. So
that was pretty much the image that people made of you.
So this is the image, and this Country Joe, this Country Joe right here, is the Country Joe that I think Carlos Santana and Joan Baez are expecting to pop up sometime, you know. It's really bad for box office. But the other thing that's really crazy is if this was a picture of Eminem or Dr. Dre or Ice Cube, if this was a picture of Ice Cube, right? This could be a picture of Ice Cube. This is worth quadruple platinum.
Yeah.
Huh? Right. This is worth quadruple platinum. Really. From Death Row Records or RCA Victor or anybody, you know. That there is, which reminds me, you know, when Faye Dunaway came out with Network, there was a big movie about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, a long time ago, maybe 20 years ago. Network. Faye Dunaway was the star of the movie, and I went to see the movie, and she said "fuck" about 100 times in that movie. and she got paid a lot of money, and it was a big success. And I thought, fuck, what's up with that?
Yeah,
what's up with that, man? Shit, what's up with that? So I can get a little humor out of that, and I can say like fuck, man, what's up with that? I don't think Ice Cube has the success of Dr. Dre or Snoop Doggy Dogg or Eminem, for instance. But if it was a thug rapper sitting on top of a dead cop today, it has commercial potential, But this Country Joe, in this image had no commercial potential, only in the imagination of the underground. I mean, the underground is treating me like a star here. But you must understand, it's a 3 franc book that's mimeographed. It's not an international release on a hardbound, And also, it's totally without licensing or copyright or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, it's done by, of course, I don't know, it's in French, and I don't speak French. Typical American, I only speak English, American English. But the whole, I should get someone to translate this. Look, one of my kids has drawn crayon on this priceless heirloom here. So you can. It reminds me, because I'm reading. It goes like, in French, Albert Hall, French, Mark Kapner, French, Country Joe. So I know it's talking about being banned from the Albert Hall or Country Joe. But this is, I really don't understand what it's saying, actually, because it's in French, but it reminds me of when I was touring Germany 15 years ago. And I went on, if I told you the shows, I'm sure you would know them. It was a pop music TV show with teenagers dancing and stuff like that, and then a couple radio shows, And Americans don't know that in Germany it's government radio, government TV, And the hosts are very, very middle of the road, very straight suit and tie and everything, but talking in German, right? And so I did 2 weeks of this kind of stuff, television and radio and shows, and every time it was always the same. They say German, Woodstock, German, Country Joe, German, fuck, German, give me an F, German, U-C-K, fuck, German. Okay, well, you do something, Country Joe. Okay. Give me an F, give me a fuck. Okay, 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? La 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 la. Okay, thank you. That was really wonderful, wasn't it? That was fantastic. And how about a big hand for Country Joe, German, right? And so after 2 weeks, I was going crazy, I said to the tour guide who was taking me around, I said, and this was a big epiphany for me, a big enlightenment, because I said, damn, this is a very progressive country, because in America, you can't say fuck on television and radio, but every show I've been on, they say fuck. Not only do I say fuck, but the moderator says fuck too. And the guy said, no, you don't get it. In German, the word is meaningless. They don't care. But you're not going to hear them saying like ficken on this teenage pop music show. They're not going to be talking about fucking.
Now they would.
Huh?
Now they would.
This was like 15 years ago, see? And so, then I realized, okay, the language thing is interesting. It's very interesting. Particularly because I'd seen those T-shirts that said, the Ford logo for the Ford motor car, only it says Fick.
Yeah.
It's like the Ford thing,
Yeah.
So I thought, oh boy, I should have done the feature. If I'd done the feature, this would be a hardbound, glossy 1 million seller, I would be, you'd have to talk to my agent. You would be emailing, you would be emailing my manager to ask for permission to come to my house and interview me for only 30 minutes, and it would cost you in front $10,000 little fee and something like that. It would be up to my manager to talk to, not me.
Good, you did the fuck share then. Not the fake share.
So I think in the end it's maybe a lot more fun for me in some ways.
But I mean, it's interesting that they're still around via this Woodstock movie that is shown all over the place. I mean, it's running and running and running in probably every television station in the world. Probably it's running here as well. The
Yes, it
Woodstock
keeps
movie.
showing. But
So
interestingly enough, when it's shown in America, the fuck cheer is not included
no,
on television. To this day,
really,
yes.
I can't believe this.
You can try to believe it. It's important for you to believe it because it's the truth. That the progressive television stations that are listener sponsored cut the fuck cheer out of it. The VH1 channel, which is the hip rock and roll channel next to MTV, cuts the fuck cheer out of it. When the movie was originally released in theaters internationally in Greece, Brazil, and South America, no, Greece, Brazil, and one other country, maybe Australia, Jimi Hendrix and the Country Joe solo were cut out of the film.
No.
Yes, yes. And part of my devilishness is that I'm insisting today that the industry in America accept me and the song and the cheer. And they can't do it. Not yet. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has Loving Spoonful in there, and Led Zeppelin, and Grateful Dead. When's Country Joe coming in, you know? And if I go, am I doing a fuck cheer when they broadcast the ceremony on television? Huh?
Is there any hope that they will nominate you?
In the back of my mind, I'm thinking it would be pretty good for me to do that because then record sales would go up and everything, and I could make more money for benefits and get health insurance for all my kids and apartments maybe. And but I stopped thinking seriously about it. It's quite possible that it'll never happen for me. It's quite possible.
Is there anybody who was on the billboard for Woodstock that is not in the Hall of Fame right now?
Oh, I don't
Can you
know
think
because
of
I don't
anybody?
pay that much attention to it, you know.
Candid, Sly and the
Candid
Family
hasn't
Stone.
been, but I think Sly and the Family Stone have been. Quite a
Jefferson
few of
Airplane.
them, yeah. I don't know. I
Almost
stopped paying
everybody.
attention to it. You know, also my the other thing that I do a lot of, and I have done for the past 20 years, is to work with war veterans and to get some healing from the Vietnam War. And so I made an album of Vietnam War songs because I have the most Vietnam War songs. And I'm the only person really from the generation who was a military veteran and a radical and a hippie too, you know. And I didn't change my mind about any of it. I liked being a hippie, I liked being a radical, and I liked being in the military too, you know, and I don't disrespect any of that. So I still try to bring it all together and made a memorial here in Berkeley for the people who died in the war. I tried to make a memorial in San Francisco for the people who died in the war. I still am making people to see me not just as Country Joe, the rock singer, but the folk singer, the political song, the military veteran also, you know.
What's a hippie to you?
Yeah,
Is John
exactly.
Phillips a hippie, or what's a hippie?
What is a hippie?
Hippie is a person that takes on a kind of life of poverty and modestness, not like a Quaker or religious, for religious reasons, but for spiritual reasons to become a hippie. It's a very convenient group of people now, particularly for working class young people, because they can live cheaply, and so there's not a dress code involved. If you want to be, I would think in a way the punk rockers are hippies in a way, because they can live off of discarded clothing and their fashion is made from cheap things and that sort of thing. But John Phillips, I don't think, was ever a hippie, because heroin is an expensive drug to get, and fashionable clothes is expensive to get. Hippies are not really thinking materialistically, and the thing that's nice about hippies is that you voluntarily be a hippie. See, if you're Jewish, you're just born Jewish. If you happen to be African American, you're born African American. If you're Catholic, you're really born Catholic. But being a hippie is something you just decide. I want to be a hippie, and then if you don't want to be a hippie again, I don't want to be a hippie anymore.
Well, how long have you been a hippie?
I don't know that I'm really a hippie any longer. I'm a kind of a hippie supporter. I'm pretty much establishment. I'm a patriarch. I have 5 children. My children, I expect them to do well in school and to stay relatively clean and not get involved with alcohol, with tobacco, with hard drugs, to have fun in their life, but also to have some social consciousness. And in a way, being a hippie and having social consciousness is a little bit of a conflict. I don't like the kind of hippies really, they're kind of a Grateful Dead sort of stupid hippies that don't think about social concepts or political things at all. And I've never been a big fan of those kind of people. And some of those people just don't work. They don't work. But like I said, I'm a socialist, so I believe in work. Work is a very important thing, and you should receive fair wages, and you should do a good job when you work. And so I like that. But I like the hippie thing, because it's like the fuck cheer. It's really hard to box it in, to box in what hippies are. And you can judge by the people that dislike hippies a little bit of what's good about hippies. Because the governments hate hippies, the establishment hates hippies, materialistic people hate hippies. Just about everybody hates hippies. Because, well, I don't know why. They don't do what people want them to do. They just kind of hang around and act kind of silly and enjoy life, and why not? That's what I say. Why not? And so I'm very sympathetic to that. And I know Grace Slick said, people write these. Peter Townsend, I watched him at Woodstock when they pulled up in their limousine, and he wasn't having any fun. He just sat in the limousine until they got their cash money. Had to get their cash money. Then they went up on stage. They did their show. It was a great show. And then they just left. And they went back in the limousine and just plow their way through the road, and he said Woodstock was no fun. It was really shit,
What did
and I
you
said,
do
well,
after your
okay, yeah, you were there
performance?
in your limousine, you didn't have any fun. I was sitting on the stage. I was in the mud watching Jimi Hendrix play in the morning. Man, that was fucking great. Man, I'm telling you, I never forget that, Because if you're a hippie, you can have some hell of good fun. Yeah, and you don't get hung up on a lot of stuff. But being a hippie for life, I don't know, then maybe you become a bohemian, I don't know. But I think I'm still a hippie. I like hippie stuff. You can be a little bit too much of a hippie, but I'm not a really big law and order guy. If you're not hurting anybody and then who cares? Who cares?
Why did it all happen in California, and especially around San Francisco, Berkeley, Bay Area? Why
California.
here?
So California is a special country in the world. And in America, California is a really special place. Because there's a lot of ugly parts of California about how they treated the native people, and how the fascism is alive and well in California. But the thing about California is America has a dream. There's a thing called the American dream. Everybody in the world knows the American dream. And your show is called California Dreaming. And the California dream is whatever dream you want it to be. And And it's possible in California. Why is it possible in California? Well, it's possible in California because California is probably the youngest country in the world, in that people came to California, Europeans and people up from Mexico, not the native peoples were here for a long, long time, but only like 300 years or maybe even 200 years has it been really populated. And when you get to California, then there's water, so you can't go any farther. If you go to the south, the climate is a little bit different and the economic atmosphere is different. If you go to the north, the climate and the economic atmosphere is different. Anywhere else, but in California, it's really like the promised land in a lot of ways. The weather is really nice. The style is very casual because it doesn't have any European tradition connected to it, because the East Coast brought with it all the European traditions with them, and the people stayed there. Clothing, mannerisms, hierarchy, social hierarchy, professionalism, whatever. But in California, everybody who came to California came pretty much searching a dream to get lucky, because they weren't really rich. They weren't part of the old family. They didn't have old family money. They didn't have tradition with them. They had a dream to discover gold, a dream to start a business, a dream to just be in the sunshine, a dream to have a good job. And California has been a place that atmosphere has produced a lot of new ideas ever since the beginning of European people coming to California. And maybe even for Native American people earlier before that, we don't know, because it's wiped out. Mm. But that's possible. So you have in California a combination of a lot of people who are dreaming.
What was your dream in, let's say, 67, 68, 69? What was your personal dream then? Can you remember that?
In 67, 68, 69?
Yeah.
To have some fun and to, be left alone and to be a part of something that was fun and good. The counterculture. I wanted to be part of the counterculture. Yeah. And by 67 and 68, I knew that we had started it, that we invented it. Because this music is, well, Fixing to Die Rag, it's a really good protest song, but it's a protest song. But the Section 43, the psychedelic music, was brand new. A brand new kind of music, using electric amplifiers to make a new kind of music. A lot of other bands were making cover tunes or folk music put to electric, but I wrote original stuff. And so I was very much aware that I was a part of the counterculture. And I didn't want to be a part of the culture because I had been a part of the left-wing political culture. It was very oppressive. I had tried to be a part of a Jewish culture. It was very oppressive. I tried to be a part of the American regular mainstream culture. It was very oppressive. And I didn't have fun. So most of my life, I didn't have fun. But when it came to the Bay Area, and I was growing up in California, there were some things about California that were a lot of fun, because you could drive cars and you could paint your cars in strange ways. You could play rock and roll and rhythm and blues, which I did when I was a teenager, but it didn't have a social, political context to it, which was a bit oppressive. So I couldn't really talk about socialism to my friends, or racism. I couldn't really talk about that. But in the 60s, I could talk about anything that I wanted to. And nobody objected to it. I could have sex, which wasn't permissible before.
What about drugs? Was that important?
Well,
How big a role played that?
Well, I fell in love with marijuana in the 60s, and I've always liked marijuana. I used to drink alcohol when I was a kid, and I probably would have been an alcoholic, a bad alcoholic, if it hadn't have been for marijuana, because I had a kind of post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety syndrome since I was about 12 years old because of the FBI, and my parents get investigation and everything. You know, I thought they were going to put us into gas chambers, and so I couldn't sleep good. I have a sleep disorder, and so marijuana makes my life really pleasant. And I don't like alcohol. I used to get drunk a lot, and I don't like hard drugs. I used to smoke a lot of tobacco. I don't like tobacco. So getting stoned was really great. And one thing about getting stoned that was great, that I really liked, but I had grown up with knowing that Jews weren't taking over the banking industry and the threat to the world, and black people don't have extra bones in their feet to make them run faster, and women can't be in politics. And I didn't believe in all of these things, but I knew that most people did, and that it was very hard to convince people of that, of the big lies that the establishment was happening. But marijuana was an obvious lie destroyer, because we had grown up with the concept that marijuana was like heroin. It was really horrible, terrible stuff that only the worst criminals and people in the world had anything to do with marijuana. And then the minute that you smoke marijuana, you realize they're wrong. They're completely wrong. You know, they're completely and totally wrong. And so you had all these group of people all knowing. Although if we had discussed the Vietnam War or different things, we might have gotten an argument. But when it came to marijuana, there was nothing to argue about. They had been lying to us. And that was a great part about it, because it was complete evidence. And the evidence that medical marijuana is on the rise, and that lots of countries are outside of America are legalizing marijuana quickly now. The whole world is changing with its attitude towards marijuana. It has, as a social thing, as a political thing, as a medicinal thing, it's just becoming a part of our life like water, you know, marijuana. It helps to get through the day. It helps you to be alive. It helps. It has a lot of different purposes, and it's slowly changing. So to be a part of that explosion of marijuana, a turning away from alcohol, turning away from tobacco, turning away from traditional thought, turning away from traditional belief. Just believing because the government said, oh, if you smoke a joint, you'll be addicted to marijuana for the rest of your life. And you smoke a joint and you just know it's bullshit. It's just complete bullshit. And you know, you think about it, why is it bullshit? Oh, because they want to sell us alcohol, they want to sell us tobacco. So it's a deep concept. It's a deep revelation, you know. And that was fun, really fun. And you know, when you think about sometimes I think about the quality of the pot we were smoking in those days. You know, it was like shit. I mean, it was really shit. But there's another interesting thing about California. The Californians now make some of the best marijuana in the world. That in California, being entrepreneurs in Humboldt County, yeah, but also, well, all over the state, actually, people in indoor marijuana farms and this sort of thing, that the development of sensimilla, although it may have been cultivated and developed in Jamaica and other places, but California also had, because it's a place to be an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur, and you can get an idea and you can just go. And the idea of growing really great marijuana grew in California and just took off, you know, really, really great. And probably had something to do with even Holland becoming like a sensimilla capital of the world now, because I think back in the 60s, Holland had hashish, but there wasn't this focus on sensimilla, on really, really great pot. So you start out the 60s with really terrible marijuana from Mexico that was just male and female plants mixed together with seeds and stems and stuff, you know, and slowly turning into what we have today, which is really excellent, like vintage wine, only it's marijuana. And marijuana, unlike vintage wine, involves no fancy cultivation or anything. You just drop some seeds in your backyard, take the male plants, take them out, take the female plants, give them a little bit of water. So it's a great working class thing, you see. It's possible for anybody to grow marijuana. and to smoke it without any real harmful effects to you, and to make your life better. And it's not like somebody's going to like make someday you think they're going to break open a cask of old wine, you see it all the time at a wine auction, and they sell a 100-year-old bottle of a chateau something, blah blah. It sells for $1,500. And some rich, really rich, powerful people sitting in a fancy place. The servants are pouring them, and they each get a little glass of this wonderful, fantastic wine. Fuck that shit. You can just, in your backyard, you can grow the greatest fucking sense-of-me in the world, and you and your friends can all just sit around and just with a bong and just get blasted, You don't have to have the servants fill your bong for you, You don't have to pay anything for it. I mean, you can just, if the cops don't catch you, you can just grow it in your backyard completely for free. You don't even have to put fertilizer on it. You just need water. I mean, and if you live in a place where it rains, you don't even have to water it. You just harvest it, I mean, is that, as the Jews would say, manna from heaven? That's fantastic. Or fantastique, as the French would say.